Before the video starts, just wanted to remind you all that my brother and I are currently doing an after show for HBO's The Last of Us every Sunday night around 9:30 p.m. Central Time. Come watch as we talk about each episode week by week, trip over ourselves, and slowly lose our minds as we try to figure out how to do a podcast. Back to the video. Listen guys, I'm really scared about... Wait a minute. I really hate you guys, you know. Where was I? Oh yeah, I'm really scared about Daredevil Born Again. When it was officially revealed that Matt and Fisk would be officially joining the MCU, starting with their brief appearances in No Way Home and Hawkeye, I was both excited and absolutely terrified. The original Daredevil show means so much to others all around the world, including myself. The journey Matt, Karen, Foggy, Fisk, and all of the other characters in the show went through left a lasting impact on how I view these stories. The highs of the show, from the stunt work to the writing to the cinematography to the acting and directing, have not been topped by any other Marvel superhero adaptation in a while. Now that they're fully integrated into the Marvel Cinematic Universe directly under the control of Kevin Feige and his pals, and with a brand new show on the way, described as a half continuation, half reboot of the original Netflix show, I can't help but feel a little nervous about whether or not that show will be good. I thought I would take a second and go over what we know, my fears about the show, what I would do with Daredevil Born Again, and my general overall thoughts on the whole matter. Enough preamble, let's get into this. Real quick though, Brie Larson, I am so sorry. I was trying to make a clickbaity thumbnail, and you're like the most clickbaity thing that these raging man babies use that are stuck in their mom's basement. But I'm in my mom's closet, so I think that cancels everything out. I think please forgive me. Born Again will officially be filming sometime in February 2023, aiming for a spring 2024 release. Production will span almost the whole year and will primarily be filming in New York, although how much of that is filming outside on location versus filming in a studio behind a green screen or a poorly utilized volume set remains to be seen. Both Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio, I don't know how to pronounce his name, will be reprising their roles from the Netflix shows. On top of that, Born Again will be 18 episodes long, a stark contrast to these recent Marvel shows being around 6 to 10 episodes. This extra runtime can give the creators time to actually make a show instead of a movie chopped up into parts. Hawkeye, Moon Knight, Falcon the Winter Soldier, Miss Marvel, Obi-Wan. Quick side note, I really don't understand why Marvel is pumping all this money into these shows if they're only going to be in the zeitgeist for almost a month. Yes, the MCU is a machine, they have multiple projects going on at the same time, COVID of course pushed some shows around a bit, but come on, Andor was like 12 episodes. Andor, the guy from Rogue One got a full season of television while Marvel is shooting themselves in the foot doing their 6-episode events for Moon Knight. Moon Knight! Anyways, we're not too sure about whether Deborah Ann Woll or Eldon Henson will be reprising their roles as Karen Page and Foggy Nelson, but we do have some new cast members like Michael Gandolfini, Margarita Leviva, I can't pronounce last names, Margarita Leviva, whatever, Nikki M. James, and Sandrine Holt, among others that have been or will be announced at a later date. I'm very excited to see who each of these people will be playing. Personally, I think Miss James will be playing Kirsten McDuffie, one of Matt's love interests from the comics. I know people are probably going to say something like, oh, Matt and Karen should get together, and while Karen is an important romantic partner to Daredevil in the beginning, I think in the show they work better as friends and work buddies. The Karen in the show is a far cry from Karen in the comics, so I don't think them dating would be a good idea. Maybe sometime in the future, who knows. Also, I'm like 90% sure we'll get some cameos or reintroductions of the rest of the Defenders cast. Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Danny Rand, the Immortal Iron Fist, Warning Me the Hand, Protector Come Long, maybe even a brief visit from the Punisher himself. Those complaining that the carryovers from the Netflix side will need to be completely reworked for the MCU don't actually understand how easy it would be to just have them be in the show without the need to reintroduce or flat out change key story elements from their respective stories. If Matt can show up in She-Hulk and be virtually unchanged, then so can they. Except for maybe Danny. Maybe change them a lot. Maybe do something different. Maybe just completely ignore the show. Except for Colleen. And Misty. And Ward. Another big thing about the show is that this is an MCU proper show. No more days of vaguely referencing the Hulk or dancing around what happened in the Avengers movie. Finally, street-level hero Matt Murdock and his pals can interact with the many characters in the cinematic universe. Possibilities are limitless for interesting character interactions between those established way before and those coming into the world for the first time. With the solid 3 months of airing, should they choose to go weekly all the way, we have a large amount of time to properly flesh out these types of moments and truly make sure we aren't shoehorning them in for the sake of the all-powerful, all-knowing hype machine. Hawkeye, Loki. So you're probably wondering, why are you scared? On paper, everything about this show seems like a massive win for both fans of the original show, fans of the MCU, and fans of Daredevil in general. And with the insane budgets Marvel gives their shows and movies, this is all in makings to be one of the best MCU shows of this phase. And that's why I'm scared. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, this recent phase really burned me out from the allure of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Shang-Chi was pretty cool, I liked 50% of No Way Home, and that's being generous. Wakanda Forever was obviously the standout of the phase 4, and the only Disney Plus shows I enjoyed were WandaVision and She-Hulk, and even those shows I wasn't glued to the screen. The rest were either just okay, or left me with the sense that I wasted my time, which is a shame because this was my life growing up. I really couldn't care less about anything coming out of the multiverse saga. Real quick, the Multiverse Saga is a terrible name. It's such a bad name. Infinity Saga made so much sense because A, it's the Infinity Stone Saga with Thanos and all, and B, Infinity Saga is something cool. Multiverse Saga is not cool. It's so lame. I don't know what I would have done, but all I know is the Multiverse Saga, that's a bad name. I don't know why you did that, Kevin. I don't forgive you. And fix it right now. Like right now, I'm not playing. Kevin? The only projects I have a keen interest in are whatever they do with Spider-Man, Secret Invasion, and Daredevil Born Again. I get the lower your expectations argument, and I will be going into the show with an open mind, but the original show means so much to plenty of others, including myself. It wasn't afraid to take risks, to take its time and truly develop and explore the everyday, street-level side of a world where the Avengers exist. The show, hell, all of the Defenders shows to an extent, tackled heavy themes of class disparity, the flaws of the military complex, sexual abuse, childhood trauma. A wide spectrum of the human experience was showcased here. You couldn't see the MCU at the time take it down at this kind of level. Like if the MCU was your Saturday morning cartoon, the Netflix shows were HBO. But Iron Fist was the CW. With Born Again, I'm afraid Marvel will expect too much out of it. They have a multiverse spanning plan, and Daredevil might get caught in the crossfire. Understand that this is a completely irrational fear. I doubt this would actually happen, but I really don't want the creative team to be forced to include cameos or set things up that will happen in the future of the MCU. This money-making machine is already bloated enough. I just want a well-crafted experience with a solid beginning, middle, and end. Another thing I'm concerned about, but not too worried about, is the creative team not being the same from the Netflix show. On one hand, season 1, the first 4 episodes of season 2, and season 3 are all fantastic, and to not have that team continue their work on the same character, on their Matt Murdock, on their world, is heartbreaking. On the other hand, I don't mind a brand new group of storytellers to pen this new chapter of Daredevil's story. The ending of season 3 left Matt in a pretty good place, and if I don't like Born Again, it's a solid conclusion to Matt's journey in the show. He went through hell and finally found his footing in the world, realizing that his friends and loved ones are a strength, not a weakness he needs to push away. The amount of material you can write from that clean jumping off point is tantalizing. I wish the new writers and directors the very best. Just a small fear, but I'm a little worried the MCU brand of comedy will bring down the quality of Born Again. That being said, I don't want light moments to be taken away altogether. One misconception of the original Daredevil show was that it wasn't funny. On the contrary, there were plenty of jokes and humorous moments throughout the 3 seasons. The problem is that in the MCU, the funny parts are either completely separate from the emotional core, or they work against what is happening in the moment. Sometimes it works like in Ragnarok, but most of the time the comedy interrupts the flow of a scene, which is why the beef joke in Shang-Chi is really bad. Matt's character in She-Hulk was actually pretty good in my opinion. He cracked jokes, was more upbeat, but he didn't interrupt the show's tone and presentation. Maybe it's because She-Hulk is a comedy and not a super serious introspective look at what women have to go through in a male-dominated workplace, but I think as long as they take this Matt and put him in scenarios and situations that are actually taken seriously, a nice middle ground can be achieved. Speaking of middle grounds, now, I am no showrunner or a creative individual. The only close thing to a script I've written are these videos where I sit in a closet and record my thoughts on things that might be popular right now or will be in the future because I'm desperate for attention. Oh man. But if I was in charge of the show, I would do some things that I think are not only a fresh take on the character, but also don't step on what came before. Getting this out of the way, Stiltman will definitely be showing up. We have the budget, we have the overworked and underpaid visual effects artist, and damn it, I will try to have him be in a block of episodes if I can. In fact, having him be the first bad guy Matt fights would be a fun tone setter and a good way to distance our show away from the Netflix show in terms of scale. Which leads me to my next thing I would do, and that is borrow, which is dealing without crediting the creators of course, primarily from the Mark Waid run of Daredevil. Mark Waid's run is considered to be one of the more lighthearted Daredevil runs runs, moving away from the depressing, dark vibe that Frank Miller introduced and more into an adventurous, charming, light interpretation of Daredevil. Actually, this is the run that solidified what his radar sense would look like in comic form. Kinda cool. Don't get me wrong, some dark things happened in this run, but it wasn't all doom and gloom. It was a conscious choice by Wade to keep the character from getting stale, and to portray someone who wants to break out of their tragedy cycle and try to live more optimistically and, dare I say it, chipper. Don't get confused, I still want the grounded approach the Netflix shows had. Not grounded in the sense of ultra gritty, violent, super serious, but grounded in terms of the world and the presentation Born Again will be going for. You can get as outlandish as you want, but if your show doesn't firmly root itself in that style and world you're presenting and instead plays footsies with it, the dissonance is going to weaken how effective your story is. Look at the Batman, for example. Gotham City makes no sense. A gigantic metropolis that is riddled to the brim with corruption, crime, trash, gothic structures, and a Times Square center that looks like mismatched Lego bricks, all of this below sea level would not fly in the real world, at least to the extent the Batman shows. Unless you're Detroit. However, because the writing, cinematography, directing, and the approach to the material takes the world as seriously as if it was the real world, the movie is grounded. This approach is what I would take with Born Again as well. Treat your world seriously, treat your story seriously, and use humor to elevate the material, not to distance or poke fun at it. Don't rely too much, if at all, on pathos. Contrary to popular belief, I'm not sure I would approach the pacing of the new show similar to what Andor did, with the 3-episode chunks. I know this might be a bit out of left field, but I would honestly take a case of the week approach, at first. Maybe like the first 4 or 5 episodes. There would still be an overarching plot, maybe Kingpin trying to rise back up in the criminal underworld after hitting rock bottom, in a parallel to Matt from season 3, or another problem Matt has to deal with in his life, or hell, Foggy having cancer could be a big deal. Point is, there would still be an ongoing narrative, but the structure of the show would at first be a case of the week format, giving us time to actually highlight what the average Joe and Janet has to go through in this universe where so much focus has been put on the big Avengers level stuff. At least more than what Homecoming and She-Hulk did. Recently, I've been watching the South Korean drama called Extraordinary Attorney Woo on Netflix. I don't want to talk too much about it since I haven't finished it yet, but that show does a surprisingly good job juggling a case of the week structure with an emotionally charged narrative throughout the show. It's very good, I highly recommend it. Plot-wise, I definitely would want to explore the criminal underworld now that mutants and supervillains are starting to take over. Could introduce minor villains like Ten Fingers, or maybe actually bring in Alexander Bond, the original Kingpin. I know Sigourney Weaver was a version of Alexander, named Alexandria, but her character is so different from the original comic book that we can just handwave it and just say they're different people. We could also throw in wild cards like Mr. Fear, Copperhead, or even Mindmaster if we want to get freaky. These ridiculous characters wouldn't have worked in the original Netflix show, but in Born Again, we have an opportunity to bring them in. One huge plot point I would include, maybe in the halfway mark or maybe right before the halfway mark, is bring back Elektra. One, because it would make the subtitle Born Again make more sense, but two, it's because I really like Matt and Elektra's dynamic in the show and in the comics. We could even pull from Chip Zdarsky's run where she tries to adopt the mantle of Daredevil, learning to ease up and not be so ruthless. Plus, I mean, they're so hot, they're so hot, they're like the hottest, oh my, they're so hot. And that's what I would do if I was in charge of Born Again. But what would you do if you were in charge? Let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your pitches and ideas for the show. One of the reasons why the Netflix show is fondly remembered was because you could see for yourself the hard work and dedication everyone put into it. All I'm asking for at the end of the day is for Daredevil Born Again to continue to carry that torch, to champion what made the first show great while also adding their new spin on it. I mean, anything's better than Iron Fist Season 1, so I probably shouldn't even be worried, but, you know, I thought I'd just mention it.